was in my hotel room directly below and saw the body fall through, looking out the window, saw the body fall, and obviously heard the...
Liam Payne, the former One Direction star, tragically died after falling from a third-floor hotel balcony in Buenos Aires, suffering fatal injuries that emergency services said made any chance of survival impossible. He had just shared a smiling photo with his bandmate Niall Horan days before, but hours later, witnesses reported seeing him in a state of rage, smashing a laptop and acting erratically. So, what really happened in those final moments? It's heartbreaking how quickly everything happened. Liam had flown to Buenos Aires to support his former One Direction bandmate, Niall Horan, who was on tour. You could see from his social media posts that he seemed to be in good spirits just days before the tragedy struck. He was active on both Snapchat and Instagram, sharing photos that painted a picture of a man who was smiling and enjoying life, or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. One of his final posts on Instagram was of him and Niall, a candid and heartwarming shot of the two together, smiling. It's the kind of thing you see and think, "Aw, how great that they're still close after all these years." You would never imagine that just a short time later, the news of his death would rock the world.
Here's a little video of me. It's rude to put hats on the table.
Sorry.
Is this your hat?
Yeah.
Children.
He also shared moments with his girlfriend, Kate Cassidy, on Snapchat, showing them hanging out in their hotel room, talking about plans for the day. Just everyday moments that now feel so eerie knowing what happened next.
Bueno, nada, tenemos un huésped que está sobrepasado de droga y está rompiendo toda la habitación. Así que necesitamos que venga alguien.
Entiendo, me dice entonces que es agresivo.
But then, the day took a dark turn. Eyewitnesses have come forward saying that Liam's behavior started getting erratic in the hours leading up to his fall. People at the hotel described how he was seen smashing his laptop in a fit of rage, and hotel staff were so concerned that they ended up calling the police. Reports from the scene suggested that Liam might have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol, which added another layer of tragedy to the story. It seems like something was off with him that day, but no one knew just how bad things were going to get. Things escalated quickly. After the incident with the laptop, witnesses say that Liam had to be physically taken back to his hotel room by security. It's hard to imagine what he must have been going through in those final moments before everything went wrong. And then tragically, he fell from the third-floor balcony of the hotel. There was no way to save him at that point. His injuries were just too severe. When emergency services arrived, there was nothing they could do. The medical team did everything they could, but Liam's injuries were so serious that they were deemed incompatible with life. That phrase alone sends chills down your spine, doesn't it? The medical report confirmed that Liam had suffered a fractured skull from the fall, which led to multiple other injuries. It wasn't just the impact of the fall, but the damage it did to his head and brain that made survival impossible. The statement released by emergency services was pretty clear. Even if they had been right there when it happened, they wouldn't have been able to save him. He died instantly. There's something so haunting about that, how quickly life can be taken away in a split second. For his family, friends, and fans, it must be so hard to come to terms with the fact that Liam was here one moment and gone the next. No one could have expected it. As you can imagine, the reaction to Liam's death has been overwhelming. His fans, his friends, his former bandmates, everyone has been left reeling from the news. Social media has been flooded with tributes from all corners of the world. People who grew up with One Direction are devastated, sharing stories and memories of how Liam and the band shaped their teenage years. Simon Cowell, the man who essentially created One Direction, was one of the first to react publicly. He canceled Britain's Got Talent auditions for the day, and honestly, it makes sense. The man has known Liam since he was just a kid auditioning for the X Factor, and this must have hit him incredibly hard. I think for a lot of people, the shock wasn't just about losing a celebrity, but about losing someone they had watched grow up in the public eye. Some of the most touching tributes have come from people who knew him personally. Liam Gallagher, of all people, posted a message on X, formerly Twitter, that was both simple and gut-wrenching. "Life is precious, kids. You only get to do it once. Go easy." You could feel the weight of those words. Ollie Murs, another X Factor alum, said he was gutted and devastated, and reflected on how Liam shared the same dreams and passions as him. For these people, it wasn't just about Liam the pop star, it was about Liam the person, the friend, the guy who just wanted to sing and live his life. And then, of course, there's his family. Cheryl Tweedy, his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his 7-year-old son, Bear, hasn't spoken out yet, but it's not hard to imagine how difficult this must be for her. Bear has lost his father at such a young age, and the thought of what that little boy is going through is just gut-wrenching. Cheryl must be devastated, and it feels like the entire world is holding its breath, waiting for her to say something. Harry Styles and his mom was one of the first from the One Direction circle to speak out, sharing a simple, heartbreaking tribute. She posted a black screen with a broken heart emoji and the words, "Just a boy." That really hit home for a lot of people. How young Liam was, how much life he still had ahead of him, and how cruel it feels to have that taken away so suddenly.
Ever since we broke up, like, "Oh, I'm not well." He would always play with death and be like, "Well, I'm gonna die. I'm not doing well." And
meanwhile, Liam's ex-fiancée, Maya Henry, is also reportedly in shock. It's understandable given that the two shared so much of their lives together. Amanda Holden spoke out on her radio show, calling it an awful tragedy and sending love to his family. Everyone seems to be struggling with the loss of someone so young and so full of life.
I tried to get him help, and then he was like not taking it. He would text my mom, "I'm not doing well, have Maya contact me," because I wouldn't respond. And it's just always the same cycle.
Even Dermot O'Leary, who hosted the X Factor back when Liam first auditioned as a 14-year-old, weighed in. He talked about how Liam blew them away with his Sinatra audition and how, despite his fame, he was always humble and kind. It's those little things that make this loss feel so much more personal, like we're not just mourning a pop star, but a genuinely good person who had so much more to give. There's been a lot of speculation swirling around, especially given the strange behavior people witnessed in the hours leading up to his fall. I know it's tough to hear, but many are wondering if substance abuse played a role in this tragic event.
It's your turn? Yes. It's your turn. You tell everyone.
I waited my entire life.
Eyewitnesses have said that Liam wasn't himself that day. People who were at the hotel reported seeing him act erratically, like when he smashed his laptop in what seemed to be a fit of rage. I mean, that's not exactly typical behavior, right? From what we know, hotel staff were so alarmed by his actions that they called the police, which tells you things must have been pretty serious. Some reports even suggest that Liam might have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time. It's devastating to think about, but the idea that substances could have clouded his judgment or pushed him into that dark place is definitely on people's minds. And the fact that the police were involved makes this whole situation feel even more intense. When staff at a hotel feel like they need to bring in law enforcement, you know something is off. It's not like Liam was a stranger to the public eye. People have seen him out and about before, and he's always seemed pretty composed. So, for him to be acting out like this, and for hotel security to have to step in and physically escort him back to his room, it just leaves so many unanswered questions. Was he struggling with something we didn't know about? Or was this a one-off situation where things just spiraled out of control?
Still, tributes are continuing to pour in as the world comes to terms with the tragic passing of Liam Payne, who died aged just 31 years old.
The substance abuse rumors aren't coming out of nowhere either. If you followed Liam's career at all, you'll know that he's been pretty open about his battles with mental health in the past. He's spoken about struggling with depression and even admitted that there were times when he turned to alcohol and substances to cope with the pressures of fame. In interviews, he's been vulnerable about the dark side of being thrust into the spotlight at such a young age. When you're part of a band as massive as One Direction, the weight of the world is basically on your shoulders from day one. And for Liam, who was just a teenager when it all started, that pressure must have been immense. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.